Thank you so much, Ras. Again, welcome everyone to the Dynamics 365 Bootcamp from Power Community. And there are lots of great sessions been lined up since yesterday. And my session is going to be on the field service implementation, especially in enterprise-focused implementation. And if you have noticed few sessions like in the morning, just a few sessions before, Ram has showed on the remote assistant, and then there are going to be some automations and schedulings and those stuff later. So where does this session fits in? This session will be across kind of a high level overview of covering many aspects of field service instead of just focusing on specialized areas. So what we can do is okay, so I will do is cover the 360 view of the field service, and with in the what I'm trying to say here is that each and every session in this tour, what we are going to see today is going to complement each other. So please make sure that you don't miss any of them, and and make sure you attend and ask questions to the speakers as much as possible. So with that, myself, Shivarajan Kumar, I am based out of Singapore. I am working as a solution architect for Avanad, Singapore. I'm also Microsoft MVP and MCT, and I'm also a proud ambassador of Power Community. And these are my YouTube link and then my blog. Let me share in the chat my blog and the YouTube link and LinkedIn, but you can find me in the LinkedIn the same name of Jivarajan Kumar, and in Twitter as well. So without further ado, so what we're going to see today, right? As I said before, we'll see how what is field service, right? It's definitely an intermediate level session. It's not going to be too much of basics, so it's not going to be of too much of hands-on and an advanced session as well. It's going to be intermediate, but it's going to give you lots of information. It's going to be too much of information, in fact, in an hour. But please make sure that I don't bore you, or I don't want to make you too lost in the session. So I'll try to keep you all engaged, and I try to stick within the content. But yeah, please make sure if you have any concern, from the content standpoint, because it's going to be a very vast one, and it's going to cover lots of things. But it is the way I have the reason I have done like this is because if someone is going to start implementing a field service for an implementation for an enterprise customer, and what are the things they need to know is what I have tried to cover here. That's why it's going to be a huge, and that's why you can see lots of slides here. Definitely not 36, but at least 20 plus slides. All right. So with that, first the introduction, right? So from the introduction standpoint, so field service, we know in simple terms, it refers to any service that's basically performed in the field, right? Where you require some manpower to do something. That's where the field service comes into the picture. So it basically, and what Dynamics 365 field service does is it provides the organizations with variety of tools that's necessary to deliver those on-site services. And okay, I think I didn't turn on my video. That's weird. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so Raz, can you see me now?
We can see you, Jiva, yes.
Okay,
great
sorry
to see
about
you again.
that. Hey, nice to see you too. Thank you. Sorry about that. So to deliver on-site services to the customers and manage the mobile workforce, right? And it also helps in dispatching the workers to a different location to do any installation, repair, or maintenance in a different using different variety of tools based on the organization needs, which we're going to see in detail later. So that. Yeah, so first, right, before we go into the details of what are the features or the services that Dynamics 365 offers, we need to understand why we need to use Dynamics 365 field service, in certain industries. Like I can say there are some sample classic examples of using field service in some well-known industries like manufacturing and telecom and healthcare and maintenance. And there are tons of use cases where you can use field service. But as a good example, I can take healthcare, right? So in today's world, we know it's very uncertain, and we do not know when we're going to face next pandemic or something like that. So field service, dynamic system field service really uh, comes handy in these kind of scenarios where you can schedule different healthcare workers and the equipments and the ambulances, and the facilities and quarantine facility or ICUs. All the things can be managed very effectively in terms of, because these are right now, it's more than just money, right? It's more than just business value. It's more of life and death scenario. So you can imagine like this kind of tool, what values it can bring in terms of real time use case. And one of the example I can take is telecom, where I have been working in recently for a few years. So, telecom is a very complex business model. They have variety of products, and the products keeps changing of every season and every occasion to satisfy the customer needs. So those kind of dynamic business scenario, where there will be a scenarios where the business would like to cater for for the business B2B scenarios and for B2C scenarios. In both the cases, the Dynamics digital field service plays a much better role in terms of managing the resources and their work hours effectively, right? So this is just one, two classic example, but there are lots of scenario in almost all the businesses and all the use cases where you need someone to do the work. You definitely need a field service to manage it effectively. So with that, just some business value to show what the Dynamics 365 field service does bring, as conducted by the Forrester Consulting. So you can see that, the overall, by using Dynamics 365 field service, there is, 60% of fewer hours that's been built, 60% savings in the billable hours, and then maintenance, especially in maintenance and repair hours, and then you can see 10% reduction in the field dispatch. So field dispatch is very costly operation, okay? Because when you require people and you require a truck and you require lots of fuels. When it is not managed effectively, it is definitely going to be a costly operation. And field service is really effective in terms of that. And later we will see how automatic scheduling tools like RSO will come into the picture to help you on that one. And that's why you can see 50% less driving time, which I was talking about just now. And then 20% fewer service calls, because many of the services can be proactively done and handled by himself. That's where this figure has been given here. And okay, so now before going to the details, right? So we want to just take one step back and understand the basics of some terminologies we use in the field service before I go into that details of the field service implementation, because otherwise, for the people who are quite new to the field service, it's going to be difficult with that. So field technicians are someone, individual who basically does the work. Simple as that. Okay. And work order is, as it says in the plain English, it's a work order which is going to have whom the work is for, and where the work is going to be performed, and what needs to be done, and the skill set that's required to do the work. And the work order products is basically the equipments or the product that is required to fulfill the work. And the services is basically a service that's done in part of the work order. So for example, different between product and services. Let's say if you take a classic example of an air conditioner installation. So your product will be air conditioner, the outdoor unit and the indoor unit as such. And the services would be like drilling and, like installation and mounting, something like that. And the service task is basically a to-do list, for the technician to do, and then make sure he mark it, because each service task basically asks its own time, right? For example, drilling can take like 10 minutes, and more like installation may take like 1 hour, and mounting can take 30 minutes. So we can even trace at the specific task level where the field engineers are spending more time on, and something like that. And that's the objective of, and also to, of course, it's not just that, it also has lots of data to field technicians to basically use, and then you can even perform some integrations on these kind of things. That's pretty more advanced, but yeah, that's the basic idea, is to basically, it's a to-do list and information, and it holds duration. And then the incident is nothing but a template. It's basically whatever I discussed now, the products, services, and service tasks. All these three can be saved as incidents. And then let's say if you have an air conditioner installation as a template, and you can have all this defined in that template, which is nothing but incident. And when a new work order comes in for like after a few days for air conditioner installation, you just choose the template. All this will be pre-populated automatically. That's all about it. And then the customer asset, once the air conditioner, which I'm talking about as an example, until it's installed in the customer location, it is part of our inventory as part of the business, the organization inventory. And then once it is installed in the customer location, it gets converted into a customer asset. So what happens is once you identify it as a customer asset, tomorrow for any maintenance, like repeatable no auto generated maintenance or manually requested by customer for any maintenance work, you can have a track that okay, this equipment at customer location has gone through this number of maintenance and then this level of maintenance as well. So it's basically that's the nice thing about it, and that's what the customer asset is. And agreement is just another feature to generate like I said, now if you have bought an air conditioner and then if you have a periodic maintenance, you can see that an organization is calling you and asking you, hey, you have maintenance in next week, and I send someone to your home. So that kind of auto-generated tickets to generate a work order can be done by using agreement. It's a feature to basically which you can configure to auto-generate the work orders for the customers, for their customer asset. So that is the high level or basic terminologies that involved in field services. So any questions, any doubts so far? You're just in step one. Right. Okay. So next thing is work order life cycle process. So I'd like to next show how the work order starts and where it ends basically, right? That will give you the 360 view of the field service basically. So you can see the first thing is the work order creation itself, or work order generation itself. So it can be created and generated from multiple sources for multiple scenarios, which we will see shortly. And the next one is dispatching or sending someone to fulfill the work order to do the work. Step number 2. And step number 3 is the person or group of people, once they reach the customer location or any service location, the work they're going to do is the third step. And fourth step is once they've done the work, they're going to review it. Someone is going to review it if they have any review process, and then review and approval goes on, and then it's going to be billed to the customer. And that's the fourth process. And the final one is the inventory adjustment. So once we have dispatched our equipment from our location, from the organization location to the customer location, now it needs to be adjusted in inventory. And this is where you can have any integrations with ERP systems like FNO or other ERP like SAP to basically do the inventory knockoffs and adjustments. So this is the complete cycle of from the work order generation to all the way to the inventory adjustment. So talking about work order generation, right? The first step in the previous slide, which you saw now. So the work orders can be generated, created in many ways. So first thing is obviously manual. If someone, let's say a customer calls the service company and then they say, hey, I have issue at my home, can you come send someone to fix it? Then they just have to manually create it in the Dynamics 365, and and the rest of the stages follows from there. Or it can be if it's, let's say, a company that basically sells does a service based sellings, like for example like a air conditioner company which is selling an air conditioner. When we cannot just sell the air conditioner, we also need someone to install the air conditioner. So what we do is we create an opportunity basically, right? We might have done sales, right? And we sold it to the customer. Now the opportunity is closed. As a follow-up from there, we are also going to send someone to install. So that's why you have, after you sell, you can also send someone to install. That's why you can also create a work order from the opportunity. And similarly from case, right? Let's imagine a scenario where like somebody calls call center and help desk and try to resolve, and the call center people will try to resolve remotely by doing taking some remote control and then trying to help the customers. But let's say they couldn't do it and they need someone to send in person. So what they do is, from typical case management module, like from the case we just convert into a work order, which means we're going to send someone in person because we couldn't resolve it from the remote, right now virtually. So that is an classic example creating from case. And then the auto-generated using agreement is what I was just telling you previously. So if you have bought a car or a bike, whatever it is, and you have a periodic maintenance to be done, so the company automatically calls you and reminds you that there is a maintenance to be due for next week, something like that. So how they do that is basically they have the system in ours in Dynamics 365. We have agreements to basically to do that, to generate work orders in a periodic interval as you configured for specific customer, for specific priority. You can play around with that, based on the different importance of the customer or priority of the tickets. You can always, it's much flexible in a way that you can generate it whenever you want and however you want it. And then another, from enterprise implementation standpoint, the one here is a classic, which is from a portal. So when I say portal, I'm just talking about the Power Apps portal. I'm talking about any portal, like any legacy applications that the customers might have today to basically, to raise the concern, to raise a ticket. So what you can do is you integrate with that kind of application and then, you can create work orders in the Dynamics 365, and then it follows the life cycle from there. There are different ways to do that, and which we're going to see shortly. And then IoT devices, another classic example, which is the world is heading into, to be honest, to do a preventive, a proactive support, I would say. So if you imagine, like any sensors, like heat sensor or fire alarm, basically, it can, if it gets heat or it gets a malfunction, it raises an alarm, it raises an in ticket through the system, and then it automatically creates the work order. And then again someone goes and fixes it before somebody calling and informing. So that's how cool it is. There are different ways to do that, to provide the services actually nowadays. And okay, so now this is, whenever you see this blue color thing, just if you're listening carefully, well and good. If you got bored of my conversation and you're about to sleep, please wake up, because these things is going to be like kind of tip that I have learned along my experience, and which I'm going to share. So there are a few slides you're going to see this icon here. So for example, this one, geofencing. So there is a thing called geofencing in field service. Okay, so in implementations, right, in real-time implementations, when we are managing large volume of workforces, so what we do is, it's not just about assigning some people to do the work. It's also about maintaining and monitoring them, right? The workers has to report to the location, every day, and which is nothing but daily, making their attendance, and also reaching customer location. So what you can do is the geofence, as name says, when they use the mobile app, it basically keeps parsing the coordinates to the server. So what you can do is, with that you can actually play around. So like for example, a classic thing is, if you can know whether the field engineer, right, or field technician has basically reached the customer location or not. So what if your field technician, right, he's not in the customer location, but he just marks in the mobile app saying, hey, I'm already in the customer location and started working on it, but he's somewhere hanging around and having a nice beer. So what you can do is you can use geofence to basically prevent that kind of thing, right? So only if the customer, if the technician is within the customer location within this specific distance, then you allow him to basically mark it as in progress. Otherwise, you basically stop him to do that. Those kind of fancy things you can do. It's, again, as I said, it's a pro tip. Please make note of it, right? And there are a few tips like this, basically, right? And then, yeah, this is another one. So this is a quite common one, actually. So using skills. So in field service, basically, we have okay, so we call resources, the field technicians, we call resources, and not just field technicians, we call equipments as resources, we call the facilities, like in the healthcare industry. I was talking that you can schedule a ICU room, you can schedule a COVID quarantine facility, you can schedule doctors, you can schedule the equipments. I was just talking about that, right? So all these things are resources. Basically anything that you're going to schedule and reserve or you can plan is basically resource. Okay, so what you can do is you can assign something called skill set to resource. Okay, so you can assign, say for example, let's say if you assign if you want to mark a resource as a plumber, you basically assign a skill set as plumber. And if you want to mark someone as doctor, you assign a skill set as doctor, something like that. And it's not just like that. You can also have a different level of proficiency within the skill set. So you can create a proficiency from rating 1 to all the way to 10, to mark their proficiency. And you can say the 10 being the highest and 1 being the lowest, something like that. So with that, you can think about a scenario. Let's say we can use skill sets to a example like this, where let's say you have let's say it's a MNC, or it's like a typical commercial building where you have different offices, different organizations in different floors, something like that. So what we are trying to do here is, when you are sending a field technician, we are going to make sure that he have access only to a specific floor, right? Even within the same building. So that's why it gets tricky. So because in a field service, when you send someone, you send them based on the postal code or the address, right? So but this one we are talking about here is the same building, it's just different level. So what we do is, right, and we are talking about controlling access. So what we do is, the system should be smart enough to send a technician who only have access to that floor, right? Because if he sends someone who doesn't have access to that floor, there's no use. He's going to go there, and then the security is going to send them back, right? So to avoid that, what you can do is basically you can have a skill set itself in terms of security clearance, and then assign to the resource, to the technician. And then based on that, automatically when you create a field job, when you create a work order or a job, it can be called in any way. So in a work order, you can have skill sets, requirements saying level 5 clearance. So whichever field technicians that have the level 5 clearance will be only able to will be only sent by the system. So that way you have that kind of control. So that's why I said this skill sets is not just to define someone's qualification. Also, it can be used in scenarios like this. Okay, that's the reason I have put this here. Okay, any questions so far? These two geofence and skill sets will definitely be very helpful when you do the enterprise implementation. Okay, all good. I don't see any question. Let me move on to the next one. Okay, next one we're going to talk about is the scheduling. Okay, so we now saw the basics of the field services, and we also saw some 2 pro tips, and then now we are talking about scheduling. So what is scheduling? Scheduling is, as you can see, it's basically something that connects the work order and the workforce. Okay, so you have the work order generated, as I just showed. It could have been created from any of the sources whichever I just briefed you. Now you have the manpower with the different skill sets in your database. Now you need to send them. You need to send the right people to the right work, right? And that's what we are going to do. That's why the scheduling is for. So to do that, right, when you do some implementation, you should plan, like basically when you sit and do the plan to do the configure. I mean, when you try to set up the system, you need to think like, how many resources you're gonna you can expect, right, to be scheduled. Like it can be a human, it can be as I say, facility or equipment or anything like that, right? Because the number of resources will have direct impact on certain things like the performance and licensing if you're going to use the RSO, something like that. So that's quite important. And then again, what type of resources are there you're going to be expect in your implementation, and how frequently they request they're expected to be scheduled. Like, is it like, whenever the work order comes in, it's going to be scheduled immediately, or you're going to have a daily schedule, overnight schedule, or you're going to, like, for example, there can be scenarios where, the tickets will be massive, and then over the night, the job gets job runs, and then it just finds the respective technicians to go and do the job. So those kind of, or it can be both. You can have an immediate scheduling. Whenever the work order is created, you can have scenarios where you want to send someone, Or for certain type of work orders, you don't want to, there's no necessary to send someone immediately. You want to hold it and then, leave it to the nightly job to do the work. So that is based on maybe the priority of the work, or no, maybe based on the customers, profile, something like that. So, and also, you can, you need to know where the resources will start the day and end the day. So, for example, for some organizations prefer the resources to come to the office and then leave from there, right? It's very common. And some organizations in nowadays, they just prefer, just leave starting from their home, the respective resources home, and then, go to the customer place directly. So all those things are, matters, because that defines the configuration setup in the field service that we are going to do, right? And then what type of skill sets, and which I was just talking about, a separate tip around that just now. And then the tools you need, like, whether you need just the schedule board that comes with the field service, or you need a separate product called RSO, which is called Resource Scheduling Optimization Engine, in case you have a massive number of requirements, or resources scheduling to be done. So the enterprise implementations, mostly they will need RSO, because you cannot expect some human to do all the time, right? And even though if you automate by API, it's not going to be that effective like RSO. We'll see that shortly. Just hang on there. And with that, now next thing is having the right strategy, right? When it comes to scheduling, you need to know what strategy you're gonna follow. So we're gonna just see some. Now, if you have seen this web series, probably you might know what I'm trying to show. So no, this is, if you can have an when I say strategy, you need to think about, whether you're going to automate the complete scheduling, or you're going to have, like a manual scheduling, or you're going to have both, something like that, right? So this is from the web series Loki, like this basically say how the so-called TVA in that web series, how they manage the thing, and then if it goes something unexpected, how they send someone to basically go and fix it, and something like that you can have in your organization as well. So you can have an automatic scheduling, planned, and when someone, there is some abnormalities or some issues or concerns, and definitely you can always have a manual, someone to go and fix it, or someone to go and adjust it, because it doesn't need to be always the way we have configured, right? Sometimes it requires more specific care. So in those cases, definitely manual scheduling, a combination of manual and auto will definitely be helpful. So a prerequisite, yes, definitely you need to have accounts, and then the addresses of the customers, and then the territories, and then the bookable resources, which I was just explaining previously, and then the resource territories and the characteristics, start end locations, work hours of the resources is mandatory, and because it's how in customer service you have, like the service hours. Here the thing is work hours is, it's basically for the resources, you need to know when the resources will be working. So if you have a business running 24/7, you will have a different shift patterns, and you will have a different shift patterns for different teams. So what you need to do is basically, in that case, I have not put a pro tip for that, but I can just tell you right away. So what you can do is you have to configure at least one resource work hours throughout the period, and you can save it as a work hour template, and then you can basically apply to other resources in the team, something like that. But yeah, but the thing is, you need to have the work hours configured, because when you use APIs for auto scheduling, or scheduling assistant, or RSO, it respects the work hours, which you'll see shortly again, right? And then priorities, if you have a VIP customers, you have urgent critical tasks to be executed immediately. For those kind of categories, you can assign the highest priority, so that when in automatic engines or rules like RSO, they will consider the high priority and then assign the resource or technicians to them first before the normal orders. That's why that's the use of priority. Okay, just so far I have been telling that like you'll have a skill set and you have priorities. So let's see what does that mean, and where are they, right? This is a resource requirement. So whenever you create a work order, it has this resource requirement creator automatically. So this resource requirement is the entity that holds what is required to fulfill that work order in terms of assigning a resource. Okay, so work order itself, I'm not going to go into details. It has tons of information, like as I said, whom the work is for and what is required to do the work, and like other information. Resource requirement is exclusive for resource. What resource is the best resource to fulfill the work is what resource requirement will have. So resource requirement is like left hand side, which tells I want these qualifications for my resource, and you have a pool of resource in the right hand side, and your scheduling engines like scheduling assistant and RSO or custom APIs are going to find the matching resources based on the conditions you have put in the resource requirement. Simple as that. So if you can see in the resource requirement, you're going to have skill sets like, so here you can see that I want a skill set, let's say someone who knows .NET with a good rating, and someone who can handle some controls, write some controls. And then you can see even I have preferences, right? Some customers have preferences that I want the same person who came last time to, I mean, in my next visit as well. If customer has any specific demand like that, or then you can have that kind of resources pre-configured for that customer, so that it from that list of resource, one of them will be picked up. And then again, roles you can have like if you want only a functional consultant, or if you want to have something like that, it's manager, is what the role is. And then here you can see important dates here, quite the priority which I was talking about now. So based on the priority, if you have the highest priority, definitely the automatic engines will give preference to the highest priority work orders, so resource requirements to schedule first, and then the later. And you can see territory, the region to on which the work is going to be done. And then time from promise is the promise time is not the actual time. Promise time is the time window. If you see this one, it means that you're going to tell customer, okay. So this means that the scheduling engines in field service will send someone to the customer location between this time. So someone will be there between this time. Doesn't mean that someone is going to go and complete in this time. No, it's just the starting time. So someone will reach the customer location between 12 to 4, even can be 3:50, it doesn't matter. Someone will reach there. That's what the promise time is for. So these are the base key data when it comes to resource requirement. Right, and there are different scheduling, right, and especially in enterprise implementation, it's not just going to be sometimes 2 hours, 3 hours jobs. Sometimes it can be multi-days jobs, right? For example, if you talk about projects like road construction, railways construction, right, as water sewage constructions, so those kind of things goes for days and days and months. So those jobs will be spanned across multiple days, and Dynamics 365 Field Service offers capabilities for that as well. So you can have recommend groups, and you can have a job that's been scheduled spread throughout multiple days, right? I don't want to go into details, but this is what the product offers. So so that you'll be aware of when you get into this kind of implementation. And so apart from individual resource, as again I come back to this one, facilities another resource. So you can basically typically reserve a space, a room, a surgical room, or a dining in terms of part in terms of event management. You can think about a hall as a resource, and we want to block the hall, we want to block the table. Even that you can do with the field service. And the crew is another type of resource where if the work cannot be done by an individual, when the work requires to be done by a crew, yes, the product does support a feature like that. So you set up a crew, you have a crew leader, you have a crew member. So when the recommend is to done by for the crew, system will find the right crew, and then it assign to the right crew. And the things to be noticed right now, like the resources are time bounded based on the crew. Okay, and booking to a crew will book all the resources in the crew because you're booking a team. Okay, and the pool. Okay, so and pool is nothing but it's kind of you have 10 plumbers, but you don't know exactly whom you need, right? You don't have a named resource. So what you can do is you just book a pool called a plumber, but then like when a specific before like a specific day of the work, when it's near to the day of the work, you can book the respective individual. Okay, so it's basically to avoid overcommitting or under planning, something like that. Please note that both of them are not supported by RSO at the moment. Yeah. So with that, we are getting into scheduling tools. So far, what we saw is basically what are required for scheduling and what is scheduling, how it helpful. Now we're going to see what are the tools field service offers to do that. Okay, I'm not going to details of it because I don't have much time. So you can imagine the tool, the basic tool is definitely a dashboard. Field service offers, out of box dashboard like this, a nice, pretty Power BI dashboard, which basically can, give you, you can see, you can filter for the period, you can filter for the resource type and resource, specific resource and the status, booking status as well. And it gives you the overall average work per day and work time that resource are spending and travel time they are spending, and you can actually drill down and go into each resource, and you can drill down and see into each period like that. Okay, it's if you just need to enable it from the settings. Once you enable it, you can see it here in the field service. This doesn't require any additional license. It's part of the product. And there are 3 more dashboards like this, not just resource scheduling. There are 2 more dashboards also. So another one is, I think, this technique resource, and then for the job summary one, which is sorry, optimization summary, which is for the RSO, and there are 2 more on that one. Please check on that. And then the common tool when it comes to scheduling is schedule board. Okay, so schedule board, you can manually drag and drop, or you can use scheduling assistant. Okay, so in the schedule board, you can click on the resource requirement, and I can show you. Actually, I have them, but I don't want to show the demo because it's going to take too much time. Basically, it's going to look like this, right? So this is schedule board. So if I just drag and drop, this is one way of scheduling it, or I can just click find availability. It's going to open me a scheduling assistant. This is what.
Hi, Jiva. Sorry, we can't see your schedule board.
Oh, sorry, it's not. Okay, sorry. Yeah, thanks, Russ.
Yeah, we can see it now. Thank you.
Yeah, so this is schedule board, right? So if someone wants to manually schedule, they can just drag and drop, right? So you see the schedule board is going to show the work hours of the users, which you these are resources. So the work hours, once you configure it, you can see the working hours will be in the white color, and the gray color is like they are not working on these days. It's off. But you know what? When you do manually, you can even force them to assign the work, right? Because it's completely manual override operation. But when you use an intelligence from the product, like example, this when I click find availability, what happens is it uses something called scheduling assistant. It's an semi-automated intelligence itself. Okay, so it suggests the best resources based on the skill sets that you required in the resource requirement, based on the preferences you have in the resource requirement. It will suggest the right resources. So it will not suggest if the resource is not working. You can see they work like 24th, and after that like they will be working only on Monday, not after that in Saturdays, Sundays. So this is itself a nice tool, and most of the organizations, when small and medium scale organizations, will be using this because this is very effective in terms of finding the best resources. The system does all the magic behind the scene for you. Okay, but when it comes of manual scheduling, which is just dragging and drop, it's completely up to you. You take a call whom you want to assign to, and you assign to the respective person. Okay, if I go into details of this schedule board itself, it takes at least a day to complete the complete schedule board. So let me not go into that one, but this is one of the majorly used tools in terms of scheduling a resource in field service. Okay. And again, one more pro tip, please make a note. So if you see schedule board, I just show you that the work orders, right? Actually, schedule board can even do more things than just work orders. You can assign, like cases and any even custom entities that you mark for scheduling. You can even assign them here, and you can even show different colors based on the priority of the work orders for the users who is using schedule board. They can know, okay, by seeing different color, they know which is highest priority job, something like that. And you can also as I said here, now you can also show the leave, which is called time off in field service. But basically, if your resources are applying for a leave, if they are on leave, they have a holiday, You can also mark them in a different color so that the technician, when they do manual, scheduling, like I said now, it's completely up to the person who is doing it. So they know like, okay, this person is on leave, something like that. Or if you, let's say you can have a different variety of leave, like a personal emergency or, something like that, so that you don't disturb the person, right? Because in manually, you can force someone to assign if it's a critical job. But if someone is on personal emergency leave, you don't assign. So those kind of things you can play around. It comes into the, crux of schedule board customization. That itself beautiful and, vast topic. So let's not go into that one. And you can customize tons of things like this. You can customize resource cell. Resource cell is this. You can add ratings. You can, add more stuffs here. And filter pane is this. You can add, by default, product gives these kind of filters where you can, filter based on the company the resources works for, based on the location the resources work for. But you can add more, custom fields or anything also here. You can customize it. And you can customize, like if I drag and drop here, by default, it shows the work order ID and the duration, but you can add more information that as well. You can customize it. So it's all again comes into the schedule board customization. Let's move on to the next one. And scheduling assistant, which I just showed you now. When you click on the find availability, it opens the scheduling assistance. So it's not the only way to open scheduling assistant. If you if you are in the, let's say, work order, and you can also, it will have a button called book, and if you click that, it will also open basically the scheduling assistant. Okay, it's a new feature. This one is a new feature, quick scheduling assistant kind of stuff. If you open it from the form, it will open the scheduling assistant here. Again, from there, you can open the main scheduling assistant, which I just show you now. There are no suitable resources to fulfill this work order. So it's just showing right away in the face, there are no resources who match this criteria. The next tool. The next tool is the self scheduling portals. It's one of my favorites because it's a Power App portals. So you can just enable the Power Apps portal. Once you enable it, what happens is, this is okay. So why it's required? For better customer experience. How? Because as name suggests, it is for the customer self-service. So let's say I'm the customer. I have think about implementations, right? Not just enterprise, even for small and SMB implementations. If I'm the customer, I ask someone to come to my home to do some installation or service, and I would like to track them. I can track them, like how you track Uber or like something like that. I can track where my FE is, I mean technician is currently traveling now. I can do that because I can get, as a customer, I can receive an email from my organization with the link, tracking link. If I click on that, it's going to show me it's going to open a browser and it can show where the technician is currently in. And second thing, if I want to postpone the appointment, let's say to some other day, I can do that. So I can just, again, the employer might share the URL specific for the customer. And if I am a customer, I can click the URL and then it opens this portal. And then, I can choose some other alternative day. And then, I can just choose the time and I can just, confirm. This will automatically behind the scene adjust the work order. I can even create a request a new work order as well. If like think about some self-service portal without, nowadays it's very common. So I can just go and request someone to come to my place without calling anyone, and I can even do it from here. So this kind of awesome stuff have been released recently, just 6 months back. So before this, you have to build all of these things on your own using all the Microsoft APIs. So now the self-service portal is something I would suggest to keep an eye on. This is scheduling API. So all the self-scheduling portals, right? Even the scheduling assistant that I showed you in the application, all this internally uses the APIs, end of the day, correct? So Microsoft also exposes these APIs. So which means you can use this to connect to any external system and, basically to get the work order, to return the available resources slots, to basically choose someone and book. So imagine you don't have a portal and someone has a legacy application, they have a legacy appointment system, whatever it is. and then they want to integrate with the field service, you can still do that. You can just give the we have the API flexibility, like this is a sample architecture use case how we can use it. So you can see I've taken example like a customer portal, a legacy customer portal, or a legacy ticket system, which basically you have a middleware in enterprise implementations. This is to show how things works in enterprise implementation, right? So you basically collect the inputs that's required, and then you call the Microsoft API, and then you basically get the
Okay, I think we may have lost Jiva. Hello there, Jiva. Are you still there? We seem to have lost you. So we will just wait a few minutes whilst Jiva joins us back. He may have lost his internet connection, it looks like.
Hello.
You're back, Jiva, thanks.
When did you guys lost me? I was talking.
It's just been 2 minutes, Jiva, so we only lost you 2 minutes ago. Yeah.
Okay, sweet. Yeah, okay. So basically what I was saying is, in this classic example, the Microsoft offers all this API, the search availability API. This API basically accepts the some inputs. You just need to prepare the input from the external system and then massage it and then send it to Microsoft API, call the Microsoft API. It gives the bunch of my bad. This API I'm just trying to show is to basically uh, get the available resources and their slots to for a job, something like that. Imagine you have a ticket system, and it's a legacy application. It has ticket. You need someone to do the ticket. You just want field service to give the right guys to do that. That's all. So you basically get the ticket information. You give it to Microsoft API in its required format. Microsoft API will give you the bunch of slots of the resources, and then you basically do all the massaging of the data. If you want to cut down the results based on your business process, based on the region, or based on the company the resource is working for, you can do all this kind of magic, and then you can return back to the calling system. In that way, from the calling system, they know what these are the people available, and then they again book it. Again, you come back and then create a bookable resource booking entity. These are all basics of field service. I'm not going into that, but basically, you create a bookable resource booking entity, which means you confirm the resource, and then you're done. So this is using API. And of course, you can also, any dispatcher or scheduler can use the schedule board, as I just showed now, to book the resource. And you can also extend it complete automation using the RSO to schedule it. And once the technician has got the job, he will use his field service mobile or legacy Resco mobile app. Still, Resco is of course is supported, but you also have the field service mobile app, that Microsoft has released. And if you're not using it, it's time to use it. And their technicians will use it, and then they will update it the jobs accordingly, right? So this is a full architecture of a very high level architecture of enterprise implementation with the legacy app with the field service, right? And then RFO. So that's my favorite part of it. Any questions so far, Russ?
There are a few questions.
Okay.
So we do have time for questions towards the end, I guess.
Okay, I'll just finish my session in probably 2 or 3 minutes, and then I'll address
the. Great.
Yeah. So RSO, why we need RSO? RSO is to automatically schedule. So you just saw me that I'm scheduling using the schedule board to schedule the FE, or using APIs to schedule. But this is an excellent engine built by Microsoft, but it comes with the cost, of course. For every resource you schedule, you buy a license, because it's not just about finding the available resource, but this concerns many things, like which resources nearby, which resources, the traffic in that region, and the skill sets, the and the matching, criteria to assign a job. it's not just stops within assigning someone. It also, you can also keep re-optimizing it, so that imagine like myself and Raz are technicians, right? Initially the system is assigned to me, and based on my current location, and tomorrow is the job I'm going to do to the customer. But let's say tomorrow Raz has got a job to be done, which is near to that customer, just 2 hours before that job, let's say. So again, the engine runs in and it finds that, okay, the best person to do now is Raz, because he's already having another work in the near to that customer location. So system automatically reassigns the work from me to Raz, and so that it basically trying to cut down the travel time of my time, and then trying to use the best resource based on who is nearby to the customer location. So all these kind of things, huge cost saving when it comes to enterprise implementation, because we are talking about thousands or hundreds of manpower working on the field here. So the common use case in RSO is basically I'm going to details of it. So overnight scheduling, you can have a planned overnight, like either every day overnight, or you can have a scheduled overnight, or you can have for specific customer, or you can have a overnight schedule for specific region, or you can have a automatic scheduling for a specific priority tickets. All these things you can play around. Okay, so emergency, normal tickets, still manually people can do, or from legacy application or APIs, via APIs you can do, and for like a huge volume of records and not so important works, overnight scheduling can be done via RSO. You can all mix match all these combinations, and also you can have a conditional schedules like this. For example, if you take this example, you can see if it requires emergency, you can run an emergency RSO, which will basically send someone immediately, or if you're not emergency, you can send someone later. So all these rules you can play. So I have explained this in my blog in detail, so please feel free to visit it later. I'll share the links in the chat, but it's a heavy topic itself, right? It takes lots of time to explain and understand. And pro tip, I found that, well, with help of some of my good friends, I found that it can also trigger on demand. So you can use Power Automate, or you can use any C# code to basically trigger on demand whenever you require. And another pro tip, keep optimizing. As I said before, don't just stop once the job is scheduled. Keep optimizing until you find the best person to do the job, so that you make sure so that your organization saves lots of cost. Another pro tip, if you have a scenario where you want to so that there is something called preferred organization unit, which is respected by scheduling assistant, but RSO doesn't support it. So what does that mean? So that is basically to say, to use certain companies people to do certain type of jobs, or to do certain company resources. When I say certain company, imagine you have an enterprise in business, you'll have lots of vendors under you. So I'm talking about vendors. So if you want to send people from some vendor to do some job in some location, you can control that kind of segregation also by RSO. So you can have a different RSOs scope to specific resources, and that's how you achieve that. Okay, so I have explained all these details in my blog. Please feel free to check it out. And finally, it's a mobile, which is basically, as I said, will be used by the technician, and field service native mobile is nothing but the model driven app. So you don't need to know a separate technology. You don't need to learn a separate technology, or like Resco, how it used to be earlier. So with field service mobile, you can actually it's easy to customize and then easy to use. So yeah, with that, this is a learning resources. I'm going to share all these links as well in the chat, and of course my blog and my YouTube link. And with that, thank you so much. And then I will go to the questions. I have only 4 minutes.
Thank you very much, Jiva. So the first question is by Vikas, asking, is booking pool, does it allow auto selection of resources in a pool on the day of work?
Is booking pool allows auto selection of resources in pool day of work? Okay, so when you say auto selection, right? Auto selection is done by a RSO typically, right, in field service. Unfortunately, resource pool is not supported by field service. So once you have the name pool, you can actually pick the resource from the pool. That is the responsibility that we have to do. because
So-
RSO doesn't support the resource pool.
Okay, so NG is asking, what is the minimum factor available on dashboard? Utilization by hour or utilization by day? What is the best way to drill utilization by time period?
Well, they have by day, by hour, I don't think so. I have not checked into by hour. I don't recollect it, but by day you can have it. By hour it goes, it actually shows in the chart. There is a table which you can expand and you can see on each time actually how much is due. I think so, but I'm not sure from the hour standpoint. I can check after this call. In the next session, I can put in the chat for this one.
So NG is asking, please can you share the link which talks about displaying time off requests on schedule board without disturbing work hours?
Yeah, I'll do that. I do that. It's in my slide and I will do that. Yeah.
And I believe, yeah, NG is also asking, how can I get a trial of RSO?
Okay, RSO trial, you have to request Microsoft because you cannot directly avail like how you avail for the other products in Dynamics 365. You need to request Microsoft to get the trial. So if you are working for a partner, and you can also approach your team to basically get it for you if you're going to use it for some customer demo or anything like that.
So I think this may be the final question, which is by Mayank, who's asking, are there any tools available to migrate resource configurations, including working hours from one environment to another?
That's a good question. So you have to use any CRM data migration tool like config migration, data config migration tool.
For Mayank, if you're not aware that is a free tool that Microsoft includes in its developer toolkit.
Yeah.
Okay, so lots of great feedback. Thank you from Mukesh, NG, and Bala. So lots of great feedback for your session today. I think it was very well presented. Jiva, I think you gave a really, really nice explanation of a complete, more of a holistic view of field services. So really, really appreciate that. Thank you so much, especially due to the fact that you're ill as well and you managed to get through it. So thank you so much once again, Jiva. It's always a great pleasure hosting you all the way from Singapore. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Raj. It's always a pleasure to talk in 365 Saturday. Well, Power Community now, but I always remember 365 Saturday.
Thank you so much. Looks great.
Thanks,
Fantastic.
everyone.
Great to see you.
Thank
Got
you.
the old school swag there. But thank you once again, Jiva. Huge applause. Round of applause for Jiva. Thank you so much, Jiva. Hope to see you soon. Fantastic.